Have you thought about doing a marathon but don't know where to start in terms of training? Or maybe you've done a marathon or two already and you want to have some more ideas on a training approach that would work. This could be the video for you. In this video, I'll be taking you through some of the most important things that you need to consider when you're doing that marathon training. For those of you who are new to the channel, I have ran 13 road marathons now over a period of 7 years, with the best being a 2:53 in 2023 at Manchester. And I also coach, so I'm a UKA level 2 coaching running fitness, and I've coached multiple athletes to marathons over the past couple of years. I'll be sharing with you a mix of what I've learned from my own experiences, shared with the research, reading around popular running training plans, running coaches out there, and also through speaking to people of all levels of running marathons, whether that's beginners right up to the elite level. We'll start with what I feel could be the most important factor in training for a marathon, and that is the aerobic base. So being able to be fit aerobically. You might have heard a lot of people say about that they're building a base at the start of marathon training and might not necessarily know what that means, but simply they're doing a lot of easy running there to make sure that their aerobic system, so it's a system that's using oxygen to produce energy, as opposed to their anaerobic system, which the aerobic system is used predominantly in running, is making sure that is really efficient at the start of marathon training. You can train your aerobic system simply by getting out the door, and every time you run will train that aerobic system. But to get it to a maximal effect of training your aerobic system, you'll burn out if you're running quickly. So taking it nice and slow. So those easy runs, the long runs, recovery runs, they will all be adding to your aerobic base and will stand you in good stead going into a marathon from an endurance standpoint. Another element we must consider is how we fuel our marathon. So this could be a bit of a icing on the cake at the top, but I've decided to include it with the easy running, so it fits in really nicely here that a lot of our fueling practice we'll be doing when we're on these easy runs, particularly at the start when you're doing your first marathon. But more trained athletes will be practicing taking fuel at marathon pace so that their stomach can train to handle the additional energy that you need to survive the 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe hours of doing a marathon. So we only have a finite resource of energy when we're running through our carbohydrate stores that we've consumed from real food before we start the race, but we can also add to this during the race through extra energy in the form of sugars and glucose, which can then be broken down aerobically when we're running into ATP, which is our source of energy to go to the muscles to be used in running. So we can add gels to our race. There are different requirements from different people who are trying to sell you these gels, so do take with a pinch of salt some of the recommendations and try to go through trusted scientific studies of how many grams of carbs you use per hour, because it's in the energy gel company's interest to sell you more. So always take these with a bit of cynicism, and also remember that you need to train your stomach to take on this energy. So where it may be optimal to take 100 grams of carbs per hour, or maybe even more, will your stomach be able to deal with this load of energy? You often get some GI trouble throughout the race. So another key factor to remember when running your first marathon is that you want to know what pace you're going to run your marathon at. If you've not done one before, this can often be a very tricky task because you are just guessing and taking it based on what you normally feel comfortable at running at for your shorter runs. So you've got no idea how you feel sort of 2, 3 hours, 4 hours into the marathon. One bit of advice for this is that in my observations, I don't think I've ever heard someone come back from a marathon and say, I wish I'd have run quicker in the first half because I was too slow in the first half. Everyone has tended to run through halfway and feel comfortable, feel fine, and then when they have issues it's around 16 miles onwards and it makes it a very painful run to the finish then. So one bit of advice I would say is to consider what run you feel a comfortable easy run at and maybe take about a minute per mile or kilometre off that. So if you're comfortable running at 9 minutes per mile on your easy runs for say 45 minutes, try running at 10s for your marathon and get to halfway and reassess. And if you think, oh, you know what, I feel okay, I can start stepping it up, you've ran the first half a lot easier in that case, so that you can have the energy required to get you to the finish line. Another area which might sound a little bit surprising considering we're training for an event that's going to take a number of hours is speed work. So I'm largely thinking about interval training when it comes to speed work here. So these are things like timed reps, so you're doing something like 6 lots of 2 minutes, 6 lots of 3 minutes, having a rest and then going again in between on the next rep. Or you could do it to a distance, so if you're doing it on the track, you could do 400 meters on the track, you could do some shorter stuff of 200s, or build up to a little bit longer reps which will build your endurance. The premise of speed work is that we're going to be training working more efficiently, so our running form is going to be more efficient. That means a better stride length. We're going to be running with a better running form, so that'll be a good positive knee drive. We'll have that really good forward lean going in when we're looking at our technique there, and we'll be striking through the ground with good contact there on those intervals. And that over time will then translate itself into the rest of your runs, so you'll bring this form into your easy runs and eventually into your marathon. So you will be running those races with that form that you've been practicing in your interval sessions. And another benefit is it's a lot more fun to go out and run quick. We don't just want to be plodding around doing long runs with a shortened stride. It does you good every now and then to have a good run out, test yourself, have fun, and an added bonus is that recovery between your reps. Your body will get better at recovering to shorter times. So this then can help in the marathon. Say if you've gone off a little bit too quick, you've got better recovery powers to rein it back in and it not derail your race. It's also important to consider recovery between runs and through the whole cycle of your marathon training. So the number one thing for your recovery really is sleep. So we recover most when we're asleep, we're completely switched off, and when we are resting off our feet there. So even if you're just sitting down, chilling out rather than rushing around, you will recover better than if you've been on your feet all day at work or been in the office, you've been stressed out. You will recover better when you're completely switched off. So make sure that you make that recovery and sleep a really big focus. I see a lot of things out there, because recovery is so important, people will try and sell you different aids. So there's some silly leggings, cold water, hot tubs, things like that don't really make too much of a difference compared to an actual good night's sleep. Tied in with recovery, goes hand in hand, is also your food and your nutrition. So again, don't put too much pressure on yourself to do everything perfectly. If you're changing to do more running, a structured marathon training, trying to change everything at once and change your diet to eat like the cleanest person out there is probably going to send you into a bit of a breakdown. So take things one step at a time. I found when I started running and started training for marathons that I still ate fairly healthily, but I didn't cut out. I still ate pizzas, chocolate, cakes and sweets. Sometimes you need a good reward, an incentive after a long run, after a good session. And the other thing about it is that you do need actually more energy, and you will find that with the extra training you'll probably be losing a lot of weight anyway if you're eating the same going into a marathon if you've not trained for one before. So I wouldn't worry too much about eating really clean, really healthy food.
The final piece of the jigsaw is to have a long-term plan, so to have some structure and some consistency so that you can fit everything in around your lifestyle. So there are a few options for this. The first, probably easiest way and cheapest way is to look on sort of Runner's World, look on websites out there. There are a lot of free marathon training plans ranging from 12 to 16 weeks. I'd advise these for a first port of call to have a look at. But the downside of these is that you don't get any feedback on how you're performing according to the plan, and you can go down a bit of a hole on that, on adhering to that plan, and can lead to picking up injuries along the way. So I would recommend to try and look up a well-trusted running coach, so someone who's UKA qualified ideally, not just someone who's on Instagram calling himself a coach, and someone who's got that insurance and has been through the relevant qualifications to provide you with good training and a sensible approach. So you're probably going to expect to pay a monthly fee for this, but you will be having the feedback and keeping you on track, keeping you accountable to this plan. And that's something I really recommend going into training for that first marathon. Thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, please do think about liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more fresh running content.